just happened?
Bruce Campbell.
They could all be aliens.
We are talking Terminal Invasion, directed by Sean S. Cunningham. This is a 2002 movie that stars Bruce Campbell and Chase Masterson. And it's kind of like, it feels like a Stephen King story in some ways, but it has elements of The Thing in regards to some of the kind of the paranoia and stuff like this. It's a relatively little known Bruce Campbell movie that was made for TV, ultimately kind of a bit like body snatchery type alien thing. So what we have with the situation with this film is a group of people are trapped in a small airport terminal, hence Terminal Invasion, and there is a big snowstorm outside, and there is two cops come in transporting a prisoner as their car has crashed, and the prisoner being Bruce Campbell, and he's like a dangerous criminal. However, while they are there, there is a situation where one of the aliens reveals himself and the cops ultimately die. And, you know, first of all, it's the paranoia of, did Bruce Campbell's character Jack kill them? Or can he convince them that there are actually aliens? And then when they do discover it, it's like, because they can disguise as humans, who's an alien, who's not, who will escape? You have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about, first of all, what works. Quite an intriguing story, I have to say. Lots of elements kind of going on there. There are some small elements that I really liked. So, for example, Bruce Campbell's character Jack, when we first see our first alien, they're in the kind of like the men's bathroom at the airport, and you know he's having a wee, and there's like a priest who's in the toilet as well, and the priest is actually one of the aliens. It's the first one, so it's kind of not really a spoiler. And you know, the jig is up, and he gets kind of found out, but by not answering a question or something properly. And ultimately, the alien kills the police, and then Bruce Campbell manages to kill the alien. Now, what I liked about it was that he goes out there knowing that obviously the people are going to blame him for the kind of the death of the policeman, because the body of the alien disappears, it kind of disintegrates. And he doesn't even try and kind of like try and get out of it. He just kind of accepts that people are going to kind of blame him regardless of what he says. So he doesn't even bother trying to kind of say to people, oh, there's an alien or whatever. He just kind of gets on with it and just holds them hostage. I quite liked it, 'cause I thought it was like not the typical thing that you see in a lot of these films. It might be a small point, but I kind of just quite like the writing, and I thought it was quite clever. Bruce Campbell also is playing against type. I mean, he's the protagonist and ultimately the hero, but he isn't clearly a clean-cut hero, and he's being charged for murder, and we never really know if he has actually done it or something. He sort of doesn't deny it, so it stands to reason then that maybe he does. So he's certainly a flawed hero, and he's not the kind of like the quippy, wisecracking Bruce Campbell that we've seen in a lot of movies. He's relatively kind of straight-laced here. We get a couple of one-liners sort of towards the end of the movie, but for the most part, he's quite serious in this role. So it's kind of quite good to kind of see him in a role a little bit different. I mean, it's not entirely different, but it's a little bit different here. I quite like Chase Masterson's pilot character as well. She makes a good, strong leading lady, able to kind of stand up to both the aliens and the kind of the threat of potentially Bruce Campbell's character as well. It's a great game of kind of who's an alien and who's not. There may be a number of them there. The alien makeup themselves looks quite impressive when we kind of see it. There's also a really good scene when they're trying to kind of figure out who's an alien and who's not, and they're kind of going through the X-ray machine to see if obviously they can see human skeleton and stuff. And there's a great sequence where one alien is discovered, and it pulls someone else into the X-ray machine, and you see the images of the skeletons kind of fighting in the X-ray machine. I thought it was quite good. So there's some neat little directorial touches and kind of writing here that I thought was actually kind of quite neat. The story's quite intriguing. I quite like the characters. We all get to know them pretty well. So that was all kind of good. What doesn't work Some of the visual effects, as you probably would guess from a movie that made in the early 2000s, CGI has moved on quite a lot from there. And then when we do see those visual effects, they look quite terrible. I mean, this was a TV movie made in 2002, so you can only imagine what some of the kind of the ropey effects that you'll see on display here. The practical makeup is good, but some of the CGI and video effects really do look quite bad. It totally has a TV feel to it. You almost, you know, it has like fade outs where there was clearly meant to be a commercial break and kind of like an end of a scene. So unfortunately, it really does play like a made-for-TV movie, you know, with purposefully little breaks where, you know, the commercial breaks would be. So watching it, you know, as a kind of a DVD, you really notice it, whilst maybe if it was on TV, it wouldn't be quite as noticeable when it actually does do that. The set looks a little cheap, I have to say, at times. It does have a very kind of low-budget feel to it. It's not particularly kind of a gory film. It's again, it's kind of made for sort of the TV audience, and some of the acting as well is a little bit hit and miss from some of the kind of the smaller parts. Overall, though, it was quite an enjoyable film. I think the story was pretty good, and Bruce Campbell is pretty watchable in the role. I don't think it's like a classic Bruce Campbell movie that you would have to see necessarily. But I think, you know, he makes for an interesting, more anti-hero here than anything else. Far more of an anti-hero maybe than he is in sort of the Evil Dead series, which arguably he is as well. Yeah, it's just, it feels like a made-for-TV, Stephen King-inspired movie with elements of the thing, with the kind of the paranoia and stuff. But for its kind of what it is, what it was made for, it's still quite an enjoyable watch. I'll give this one... I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think I actually did enjoy watching it again. It was a pretty well-made movie for the constraints that they had at the time. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.